Let's give a massive cheer, round of applause, for Chris Hogg.
Wow, I'm really pleased to be here. I never expected to be in this building ever again after my vaccination. But here I am, and I survived. I bet it was one of you that probably did my very gentle love this place. Anyway, the story I'm going to tell tonight is a family story. And I want you to think about your own family for a second, because there are people in your families who are the luckiest member of your family, and sometimes they are the unluckiest member of your family, and sometimes they're both the same people at exactly the same time. And this is a story, a family story about one of those people that's the luckiest and unluckiest of all time. But what I want to do is I want to introduce you to the cast of characters, because there are people you're going to meet over a 30-year period. This is an epic story. Yeah, I'm going to try and just let it speak for itself, because I can make it more dramatic, but just the facts are nuts. So, let's meet the cast. This is... No prizes for guessing which one am I. This is me, obviously. This is 1983. This is a really big 80s story as well, so if you like the 80s, strap in. This is my older sister, Alexandra, and note she's got a huge gap between her teeth, and every single night for about 3 years she had to put a contraption on her head, which was like a caliper, and she's had thousands of little tiny like elastic bands that used to go in and steal, and like those spiders that kind of burst from one of those eggs. And this is Victoria. So Chris, Alex, Victoria. Cool. All right. That's me. This is me in 1983, and what there's me. I've got bed hair. I'll get an award for that bed hair. But I just want to point out this little hole in the wall here, just by my bed, which you might be able to see, because I was convinced that if I just hid stuff in there, nobody could see it. You know, nobody would know if I'd been to the cinema and gone to the machine and put a pound in and got some condoms out at age 10. Nobody would know that if I put them in there. Nobody would know if I stole my dad's Rothman cigarettes and put them in there. Nobody would know. Nobody would know if I drew a naughty picture and just put it in there because I didn't know what else to do with it. Nobody would know. Of course they didn't. Of course they did. But anyway, that's not part of the story. But I just want to know, that was my childhood life. I grew up in Bournemouth, and we lived on a really big house on the cliff tops, and we were known as the crazy family. There are so many weird things in this story. There's going to be weird hands. Hands are going to come up several times. Weird hands, and lots and lots of people behaving really badly. So, here we have two other cast members of this story. We have, obviously, Michael Jackson, who, basically, if you can write a good bass line, people will forgive you anything. That's what I've managed to work out in this life. Anyway, so we have Michael Jackson, probably at the height of his fame in 1983. Thriller has been released. It is #1 in the charts, and it's going on to be the most best-selling album of all time. And then we have, obviously, we have E.T. He was also the other most famous character of 1983 and 1984, obviously from the Steven Spielberg film. He's very much in control in this picture. And he's got his glowy finger. There we go. There's an interesting little tale about this picture, in the fact that the only reason that Michael agreed to pose with E.T., even though he loved E.T., he did it. The only reason his management let him do it was because he wanted to be in Steven Spielberg's version of Peter Pan, because he loved Neverland. He never made it, but that's the reason he actually said, all right, we're going to do this picture. But anyway, it's a great picture. It's wonderful. This is Michael Jackson's Thriller album. And I remember receiving this album, and it being handed to me when I was about in 1983. And I was like, it came with a letter from my mum. And what was weird is I hadn't seen my mum in such a long time. And I was like, oh wow, I said, Joyeux anniversaire, Christophe. And here's the album. I was like, wow, this is great, but it's not my birthday. Why am I being given this? Anyway, it must have just got lost in a move, and there it was, like completely the wrong time of year, but a birthday present. And so I felt like really linked to this album. Obviously, you've got to be starting something. That's why Michael goes, I'm a vegetable, you're a vegetable, I'm a vegetable. I used to wonder what that was all about. I still don't know. Nobody knows, I don't think. And then you've got Baby Be Mine, which is a ballad. And that was really boring, so I used to fast forward. Okay. So this is another bit of the story, Michael Jackson Thriller album. I used to just, obviously just stick my cassette in there, and there used to be a red light, and I used to stare at the light for hours, just like being 10. Like, you know, it's hypnotising. I'm trying to paint a picture here, I hope I am. Alright. So, this is me. This is my dad. And there's Victoria wrapped in toilet paper. What I want to draw your attention to is this watch. This watch was a Baum and Mercier watch, and it must have cost about £20,000. It was like one molecule of gold plus air, and it had no numbers on, and it was just a testament to how rich he was. I want you to make note of this hand here, because it's kind of hidden a little bit. It's hidden because he has an impairment in his hand. More of that in a minute. But I just want to kind of just paint this picture of this really, really successful, well, he was the youngest ever director in the United Kingdom at the age of 22. This is back in the 70s. And there's a very, very interesting reason why he became a director. And it's because of, is this going to come in?
This is the one that doesn't play.
Because of a roulette wheel. So, one of the most famous casinos in London is called the Knightsbridge Sporting Club, and they only got legalised in the 60s. Now he used to go to the Knightsbridge Sporting Club, and he was a tyre fitter. He was built, you know, he just loved tyres all day. And he went in with his wages, and so he put like 0, 3, 11, 8, well, you know, whatever his numbers were. And spun the wheel, and then 0 comes up. And he's like, well, hey, you know, 36 times that, that's absolutely fantastic. In a casino, they will leave the stake from the previous winning spin, and then we'll guess what happens next? 0 comes in again, so he's won twice in a row, and so he just leaves the stake there. The spin again. What number comes up? 0 comes up for the 3rd time. And he's just now just like going, this is like probably in about a 4-minute period. He's just like probably starting to sweat a little bit at this moment in time. Spinning again. 4 times now. 0 comes straight in. And people are obviously starting to crowd round now and like going, what the hell is going on? The croupier is probably sweating at this point. It spins again. 5 times 0 comes up. The stake is there every single time. It spins again. 6 times 0 comes in. The odds of that happening are 2.5 billion to 1. Now, if you speak to a croupier, they'll say that that has happened probably about 6 or 7 times in the 20th century, and obviously they talk about it and they note it down. 7 has never happened, but 6 has happened more than once, which is an interesting kind of just weird thing that life will teach you if you come from Bournemouth and live in the cliff tops with a crazy family. Okay, so he leaves his job. Well, no, he doesn't leave his job. He goes to his boss and says, I'd like to invest in the company. Bang, he's a director. Goes and buys a house, goes and buys a car, and he's got everything just in a 15-minute period. That's luck. That is luck. This is what his hand looked like when he was born. It's called syndactyly, and it's quite a common. I actually think this is quite beautiful. I should have warned you. There will be a picture later that is a bit horrid. So I just want to warn you. It's black and white, so it's old, and so it didn't really happen. So it's quite common, and I actually think it's quite beautiful. But his mum, my grandmother, who obviously smoked millions of fags during the war, and you know, and like probably felt a little bit guilty about, you know, the fact that he was born with a hand that wasn't like everybody else's, and so she took him to go and have that kind of dealt with. And there was only one person in the United Kingdom that was capable of unfusing a hand like that, and his name was Dr. Ralph Mackindoe. And some of you in the room will probably have heard of Dr. Ralph Mackindoe. He was probably East Grinstead's one of the most famous sons of East Grinstead. He was a New Zealander who ended up living. Basically, he invented a portion of plastic surgery. He invented a thing called the pedicure, which is where, because in the Second World War, obviously there were so many burnt young men and burnt pilots, and somebody had to kind of just, you know, take it. He advanced plastic surgery, which Michael would have loved. He advanced plastic surgery to levels that it had never been seen that before. And he invented this process here, which I'm going to show you. So he would grow a piece of skin, he would do a skin graft and cause a tube. I'm so sorry, I'll move back to the other picture. There we go. He would grow a tube of living skin that would go from the nose to under the arm. And he was really good at unfusing the frozen, burnt hands of pilots, because that's what would happen. You'd get burned and you'd obviously clench up. And so they took him to that doctor, Ralph McInerney's Grinstead. But this is the 1950s. And so what happens in the 1950s is obviously they don't let parents in. And so he was there for about 6 weeks having skin grafts, and he didn't see his mum or his dad in that time. And essentially he regressed. He went from being a 4-year-old to being a 2-year-old. And so he always had this kind of 2-year-old rage in him. You know, he was very successful, very lucky, but he's got this kind of really horrible thing that's happened to him, this kind of really early trauma that's really kind of baked in to who he is. So we go. Still, we haven't even got to the main bit of the story. I am going to speed up, actually. Okay. There we go. So, we saw that Michael Jackson came into my life at the age of 10. About 4 years later, on one of the numerous holidays that my dad took us on, because we were obviously very wealthy, so we went to Disney twice a year. We just went all around the place. And on the flight home, I was given this present it was in a cassette, I couldn't find a picture of the cassette, and it's Michael Jackson reading the E.T. story. And I loved it so much, because obviously we never got to see the film, because it hadn't just come out, but this had come out. And I want to play you a little bit, because I just think that there's a couple of things. One is that it was actually written by Michael Jackson and was in the charts exactly the same time as Thriller, but at number, I think, 37 in the charts, while Thriller was at number 1. And if you want to hear one of the songs that could have been on Thriller, it's actually on this album, and you can hear it online. It's just quite fun. But I'm going to play you 2 little extracts. Oh, there we go.
Out of the night sky, a ship was descending, the hull glowing with soft light, as if a piece of the moon had fallen. The hatch opened and the crew came out. Odd little beings, moving quietly through the leaves, gathering. A blackberry bush, a rose, a tiny cedar tree.
I'm impressed that he wrote it, you know. Listen to Michael's voice.
But E.T. was going where no one could follow. His starfire was out, and he was as cold as the moon.
Creature's pressure is bottoming out. His complexes are slow and widening.
Bart, I'm calling the flight check.
E.T. was gone.
15 hours, 36 minutes. Okay. Let's back him in ice.
You can hear Michael crying. Like they debated whether they were going to keep that tape, but no. Michael was so into his E.T. connection that they kept it in. So that's time number 2. So time number 3, where Michael comes into my life again, it gets a little bit more interesting. So I want us to fast forward. So we've gone past 83, 93, 2003, and we're now in 2013. And if you smoke 40 Rothmans a day and you drink a bottle of Teacher's whiskey every single day, you're not going to remain well for very long. And so by 2013, I'm calling my dad on the phone, but he's speaking like this. He's got a big rasp in his voice. And we're going, Dad, look, you've got something wrong with your voice. You know, you need to go and sort this out. You know, you really, really do. But he won't. And he won't sort it out. Yeah, like everything's gone wrong for him by this point as well. So he's lost his business. He's a security guard at the Bournemouth School of Chiropractic. I think there's a security guard there. There we go. So from a millionaire just to a security guard. I've got his epaulets and tie in my bag. I'm kind of proud that he worked right until, you know, anyway. I'm getting to the end now. So we're trying to persuade him to go and see a doctor, but he won't. He won't go and see the doctor because he has formed a platonic relationship with, he's living in a bedsit at this point, and he's formed a platonic relationship with a girl who lives in the bedsit downstairs. And her name is Louise Brown. And if Louise Brown, you're in here, we're going to have words later. Anyway, so Louise Brown and my dad used to play Scrabble. And they used to drink Baileys relentlessly. So it was a Baileys and Scrabble relationship, purely platonic. But what happened whilst they were playing was that my dad had like a pile of envelopes next to him, and she would be like looking over, and there was like loads of them were addressed to the Michael Jackson Fan Club. And so they're there one evening playing Scrabble, and they go, well, why do these letters to the Michael Jackson Fan Club keep arriving at this house? And they suddenly, like the penny drops, probably after the third glass of Baileys, that maybe where they're living, the Bedsits, used to be the headquarters of the old Michael Jackson Fan Club. And so they, being like down on their uppers, as they say, like Louise had no money, he had no money, but also he wasn't allowed to see his daughter anymore. And she was the exact age of the daughter that he could never see anymore. So I think that he was really trying to kind of just to recreate a sense of fan. So what they do is they get a stepladder and they go up to where the loft, and the loft has been sealed. It's been sealed with, I can't remember what it's called, but kind of just polyfiller, that's what it's been sealed with. They remove the polyfiller and they put up a ladder and they open it up and they see incredible things. They don't see that, but that actually is. that actually is from a tomb in ancient Egypt. That's a serving girl. And I think it's just a really uncanny resemblance to Michael Jackson in his own day. But no, they don't find that. But they find many, many different things. This isn't what they found either. I did this in AI. But, it's what happens when you type in Michael Jackson tomb. But, what they did find, I brought a little bit here tonight. So there were loads of these. There were hundreds of magazines. There were badges. There were, quite a few. Oh look, there's the tie. Quite a few face masks. Obviously, Michael was ahead of his time with all of that kind of stuff. And it was a treasure trove. And so what they did, obviously, if you're not doing very well, then what are you going to do? You're going to steal it and sell it on eBay. You're going to ring your daughter and say, can you put this on eBay for us? Because we don't know how eBay works. And so over the next few months, they rinsed the entire loft of all the old Michael Jackson stuff that had been left there. So this really, we've only got 2 minutes. So this really got me thinking, right? This really got me thinking about Michael Jackson fan clubs. And so I started doing all the research about Michael Jackson fan clubs. And the one that there were 2. And the first, so there's more, right? Yeah, there were 2. There was the Michael Jackson World Network and the Michael Jackson New International, okay? And the Michael Jackson World Network was run by this guy called Adrian Grant. But this wasn't the one my dad found. This was the one. Anyway, let me tell you about this guy. So this guy, age 13, buys Thriller on the bus, so excited, and then starts a zine, like a little kind of zine, and he's putting all his love and passion into it. And he's actually just putting it into HMV, right? No permission, just putting it in HMV. And eventually HMV says, all right, you can sell it. And so he just puts it in every week, 100 copies, whatever. And then it becomes to the attention of the Michael Jackson, record company. And so, it becomes official. It gets sold around the world, just this little zine. And so what this guy does, Adrian Grant, is he commissions this painting, right? He's got $2,000 left in the bank. He commissions this painting. I can't remember exactly what the painter's called. It's really cheesy as hell, but it's a painting. It cost him $2,000. And so what he does, even though he's got a tiny little zine, he rings up Michael Jackson's management and he says, our zine wants to give Michael Jackson a Lifetime Achievement Award. And so, he gets, Adrian Grant, he's probably older than 13 now, it's probably 20 or something, he gets flown over to LA to give this painting to Michael Jackson. And that's, anyway, let me talk about the other fan club at this point is failing. It's failing really, really badly. Mostly killed off by the internet. But this was the kind of rubbish that the fan club that my dad found. But the other ones are obviously just growing and growing. It's quite exciting. Now, the denouement of this story, let's go back to Adrian Grant for a moment, is the closer that you can get to a pop star, the more important you become. And so he kind of realised that. And so what this guy, Adrian Grant, ended up doing is getting the rights to do Thriller live. And so Adrian Grant, from being that 13-year-old on the bus, is one of the richest black entrepreneurs in Britain.
Wow.
Yeah. Just goes to show you've got to follow your dreams, isn't it? You know, no matter where they take you, there's a moral in there somewhere. Okay. There we go. Back to the old dad. So he refused to take any... So, right. Can I have one more minute? Okay. So he refused to take any advice about his dodgy voice. And partly because the girl, Louise Brown, basically was defrauding him. And she helped him take out 7 credit cards in the last 6 weeks of his life. And so together they did a last bank job for about £27,000. Never paid any of it back, obviously, but you know, she was just telling him that she needed to get off drugs. Anyway, it's a very, very sad end to the story. I don't know what don't know where I'm going to now. There we go. That's just going inside. But you know what? I mean, I don't think he got up every single day thinking, oh, you know, I'm just going to be a drunk. You know, people don't. You know, he was ill. And so I salute you tonight, Dad. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But yeah, today, you know, you're all right. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know, it's a weird ending, you know.